Never joke, never joke, never joke. Oh, money, never money, never money, money, never money, money. I know what you can have in money. Money, never money, never money, money, never money, money. You can keep, you can have in money. When you've been knocked for a bum, in a bill tell me money. Now because your money done, you come with conniving money. When you had your pocket full, in a bill tell me money. Now because your money done, you hustle for tell me money. Yes, money, never money, never money, money, never money, money. Now know what you conniving money. Neighbor, neighbor, joker, neighbor, neighbor, joker, neighbor, neighbor, joker. That's all the money that me walk for. A 2 pound note and a kill that piece. A 2 pound note and a kill that piece. A 2 pound note and a kill that piece. This is all the money that me walk for. I said money, neighbor, money, neighbor, money, money, neighbor, money, money. Now I know what you can have in money. Oh, Joseph.
Kissed by the warm breezes of the Caribbean, this orange beauty has 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, large modern kitchen, and a living room with an open concept. This lovely home is within walking distance to the sea, where you can take a dip in the salt waters and feel refreshed. Verone's cheerful country manor, located at Tushin, West Coast Demerara. Bookings are available on Airbnb. Contact Veronica at 516-524-1559 for more details. We hope to see you soon.
morning. Nation away your nation away your there. Nation come show me emotion, nation away them there. Congo people are the highest nation away them there. Nation away your nation. Nation away them there. Nation come show me emotion. Morning, are you morning? Welcome to another program of BUXTONIAN Morning Time. It is now 7:17 on the 27th day, that is the 27th day of September in the year 2022. Yes, 2022 in the year. AD. Is that what they say? They were the years BC and the years AD. Any trend you can tell me what AD refers to. We get moved to the front of the class this morning. When we say in the year AD, what are we talking about as against BC? Somebody drop me a line there. The dearest surprise you do, girl, as long as I see you, you good looking self. Last time I see it bowling over, I nearly catch fire. I have to look around for see you looking. To see me looking. The dearest surprise morning. Welcome to the program. What y'all do? Sandrine Beard. Last I see Sandrine. Them Beard from Boxer front. One of them, they married Ulrich Blair. You almost get mixed up with them two names there. Blair and Beard. Oh, your cousin are canny girl. Hey. Ladoy. Let sleeping dogs lie. Leave a canny alone. Somebody say after the death. Well, I'm learning, you know, after the death. AD. Somebody said after Christ. Anyhow, there's a trenchy. Well, I see two trenchy. All the time I thought they'd been on the other side. Run the lane is a trenchy. Beverly Cyrus will see you there too. So y'all like jumping people business, so y'all let's get set up. I say any trench you can tell me. But y'all so anxious, y'all welcome to the front of the class, yeah? Hey, yo, man, you know why the skylarking all the time? You get the memo yet? Share the life. Share the life, please and thank you. Share the life. When the program started, we had blackout. A lot of people had blackouts, and so they didn't get notifications. Please tag somebody, share the life. I'm waiting. I got patience this morning. This morning I got wicked intents. At least some people can consider that. Oh, Lord. Morning, are you morning? Share the life, no man. What y'all doing really? Today's protest day, you know. How many of you plan coming out to protest with me today? Huh? How many of y'all plan protesting with me today? On a serious note, 80 after the death, 80 in the year of the Lord. Right? Please share the life. Come on, keep doing the thing. Dequan Daniels, I think it's the first time I'm seeing the name Dequan Daniels. Who's Dequan? Dequan, you know, I like to know who I'm talking with and so on and so forth. Talk to me. Who is Dequan Daniels? This morning is introduction time. I want to label you wrongfully, you know.
Right? You see, all the time I was thinking that Rwanda was one of we. Thank you, Rwanda Clark. Oh, goodness. Rwanda Clark is where you come out for, oh, Canada. Is Canada here, no? Rwanda Clark. If I tell you all the story about Rwanda Clark, y'all ain't gonna believe, but let's sleep in dogs lie. Rwanda, good morning, good looking self for them children. You alright? Good, y'all talk to me, y'all could talk to me this morning. It's Tuesday. Vincent Jordan should have been on, but Vincent Jordan and sabbatical. Right? Well, Ram Singh said AD is Latin. Anodomni. Is that the correct pronunciation? I'll tell you something. You know about Latin. Listen, right now I hear we no spectacle. Sometimes I gotta show me good looking self from behind this, from in front of this specs, man. Share the light, man. What you are doing, really? Somebody got some fancy name there. I know if it's Uru. The text is Uru. Or something, but some fancy name. Anyhow, y'all have fun. Share the life. Let's talk. Protest day today. We're going in front of GCOM from 3 o'clock or thereabout. Anybody wants to go earlier? Hit me up on WhatsApp. And let's make a plan. I know they're listening. Special branches be out like wildfire. You know, Martin Carter wrote, brown beetles crawled across the land. When we talk about protests, all color beetles come out from Eagle Area. They're all over the place, masquerading as salesmen, masquerading as biker girls and boys, all kind of masquerades you see in front of GCOM when we go there for protests. Dennis McKenzie, stop telling me what them 31 MPs should do. They should know, they should get the memo. What 31 MPs should be doing. 31 MPs represent the opposition supporters. And so when the opposition supporters is under fire, what kind of language is that? When opposition supporters are under fire, then 31 MPs should be out there defending them. Or leading the charge. Right? What is chaperoning the troops. Right? They should be out there giving guidance. But remember, I reminded you yesterday that 8 of them are on the red line, you can say. Assuming they didn't get permanent jobs. Because I'm reminding you, I like to remind people. So you follow the discussion. Parliament is not full-time employment in this country. It's not full-time employment in this country. So technically, politics is like a hobby. They're doing it because they like it, right? So y'all think. There is stipend, there are research grants and so on and so forth. But Parliament is not a full-time job. And so it would be assumed that every MP has a full-time job. Right? Y'all follow me? Every MP has a full-time job. Or is supposed to have a full-time job. I assume so. So 8 MPs have been suspended from Parliament. They're not going to receive their payments. And so if by chance or sheer misfortune, those 8 MPs weren't holding down full-time jobs, they have to be somewhere out there trying to make ends meet. Right? They have to be somewhere out there trying to make ends meet. And so maybe you can argue, and Norton is in the north. Norton is in Canada. I don't know how many persons he took with them, how many MPs he took with him. And so maybe you're not going to get 31 MPs out there. But logically, you would expect some of the MPs to want to show their face, just for the photo op, even if not to really support in the real true sense of, protest in the real true sense of protest. But like I said, the possibility is they all hold down full-time jobs. And so in Guyana, the public service especially operates from 8 to 5 or 8 to 4:30 runnings. Good? 8 to 4:30. And so you can't expect, well, not that you can't expect, it's not likely that you will see them on the protest line from that 3 o'clock hour. And by the time their day is finished at 4:30, look, I too damn tired to go and join any protest of the people of Guyana. I got my family to go home and look after and so on. Right? Y'all following my reasoning? Do you like it or not? Whether you like it or not, that might be the real reason or reasons why you're not seeing the MPs on the protest line. I don't know. Right? I don't know. I am just trying to be logical about things. Good. Share the live. Y'all still struggling. Share the live, please. Good. So, I don't know. But will I hold my breath to see MPs on the protest line with me? No. Will I hold my breath to see anyone on the protest line with me? No. Right? When I go there, I go to protest. All I pray for is that there are a few people to at least watch my back. Because I ain't got eyes behind my head. And I can't afford to pay security personnel. Well, I know they're usually people who watch my back. Right? Thanks to those people who make it their duty to be out there so that they can watch my back. Good. Share the live still. I saw early morning one of these trenchies talking about me talking trash. And whatever else. I can't remember the entire description. But that trenchy can be anything other than a garbage collector. Because if I'm talking trash and you are here to collect garbage. And I would rather suspect that in all the trash that I talk, that trenchy learns much, much more than when he is amongst the intellectually lazy in the PPP camp. Right? And that is why he is present here that early. Doesn't want to miss a word, because there is so much to learn from. Welcome to school. This morning is going to be very interactive with you and your views. Andrea Boston says the strategy is to go for the money. Teachers protesting, they cut their pay. Public servants protesting, they cut their pay. Is money all that matters? Money can matter this morning. I intend to ask y'all for money. Right? In the next 15 minutes or so, I'm going to be talking about money to upkeep this program. So money matters. But is money all that matters? Can be. Money determines the quality of life. But is it the sole determinant of the quality of life? Delayed gratification, risk-taking, investment. When public servants protest, when teachers protest, they are making an investment in their future. Tell them I say that. When I ask you people for money, to support this program, you are making an investment in the future. And I mean that. So, I protested 2 days. And I lose 2 days' pay. Will that break the bank? Will that really and truly change my quality of life? Will that stop me from eating, wearing, living? These are things that we have to assess. Some people might say yes. I can't doubt them. But there's something that's called sick leave. Y'all know the different kinds of leaves they got in the public service? You got sick leave. You can report sick. And for the first 2 days, I think, you just did that, you reported sick. Right? You're not required to present a medical certificate to prove that you were sick. But once you get into day 3, that medical certificate is required and you have to submit it on the 3rd day. And as far as I'm aware, your wages and salaries don't get deducted for the first 2 days that you're absent because of sickness. On the 3rd day, and thereafter, you are required to submit a claim to NIS for sick benefits. So if I report sick according to the public service rules, and I disguise appropriately and I go onto the picket line, what's wrong with that? Some people say dishonest, right? Some people say scamming the system, but hey, the PPP cabal is scamming the system every day. We living in a scam. So the PPP is ruling, is leading by example, and we must learn to follow their example sometimes for the benefit of this nation. So you can report sick and turn up on a protest line, and I say disguise appropriately because naturally if you report sick and you're seen on a protest line, then your credibility goes through the door with your employer. And I don't know whatever sanctions they can take. Right? Let's keep that in mind. But there's UPM, urgent private matters. You can apply for UPM leave. They don't have to know what you're doing with it. Or no pay leave. You have to determine in your mind what your investment is. Is it profitable for me to lose a day's pay, 2 days, 3 days, sometimes a week's pay in the fight for a better rate of pay and improve working conditions? Is it worth it? I would believe if people look at the situation in a collective way, as against individually, they will conclude that it will very well work it. Because if all of the public servants or most of the public servants decide, hey, I'm going to sacrifice a day's pay, 2 days pay, 3 days pay, to be on this protest line to demand better pay rates, etc., then I will put my employers under pressure. Because the wheels of production, the wheels of industry, the wheels of commerce will be slowed. It means they will be losing. And so at some point in time, it would be logical or sensible that they would want to negotiate that increased wages and salaries that we are out there striking for or protesting for. And so while you lose in the short term, it's likely that you will win in the long term. If my protest will result, as a public servant, my protest will result in me getting my wages and salaries at the beginning of the year, as against the end of the year as a lump sum, I have won. Because it means all through the year I have that increase on my wages and salaries to do something with. That's an improved quality of life. But it can only come if I sacrifice. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. If I don't invest, then I don't expect profits. I don't expect a return on investment. Right? That's what we have to understand. So yes, we know our oppressors will always look for a deterrent. They want to deter protest. And in order to deter protest, they recognize that what is important, or what black people or what public servants hold dearest to their heart, is their day's pay. All right, that is what is most important to them. We will threaten them that we will take the day's pay if they're absent by way of protest. Right? And that is what has been happening in the society. I said on WPS program last night, Day Clean, that the government is reacting according to the energy, or the government is acting according to the energy of the public servants and citizens in general. So when they recognize it's an energy of fear of losing pay, then they up the ante. We're going to cut your pay if you're only absent. And so you turn up to work slavishly for slave rates, because you don't want to lose a day's pay at slave rate. But if you were only to come to realization that, hey, if we take several days off as a means of protesting the slave rate, it might very well increase. Good? A lot of people talk about they're going to replace you. They're going to replace you. But do you know it costs more to hire what I want to call a green talent? Because here you have people who have been doing the job for an extended period of time. They become accustomed to do it, and so one would believe that they're more efficient at doing it. And so most employers would prefer to keep a trained and seasoned worker than hire someone new who they now have to train to do the job. It costs time, it costs money, it costs productivity. Employers won't tell you that. They play hardball with you, they will threaten you with dismissal every single day. But in their hearts, they know that it will cost them a lot to lose you. What do you have to gain by staying on the job? That's what we have to ask ourselves. So is protest worth the while? Can we afford to lose a day's pay or 2 days' pay? It's an investment in the future. Because if we do it and we do it right, then we will get better wages and salaries. We will get better conditions of work. We will get better governance. And that's an improvement in the quality of life. But when you're looking at money and thinking about cutting corners, they say go hard or go home. I'm going to lose a day's pay. I'm going to lose 2 days' pay. Me every day. You will get all of your day's pay. How much does it do for you? Public servants are the only people in this country right now that are not seeing any handout, any grant, any increase in wages and salaries, any subsidy, any living expense or inflation relief, but they're still holding on for dear life. How much sense does it make? Meanwhile, there are those of us who go there and we protest. It's necessary for people like myself to represent the masses, because we ain't got no public service job to consider. They're going to cut PP. At least I don't. I have to consider if I go there and protest, they're going to cut my pay. I have to consider by 9 o'clock, I got to be at work. I can't go there and protest 9 o'clock. 3 o'clock, I got to be at work. I can't. If everybody is at work between 8 and 4:30, how are we going to get protests, and who will we protest? Closed offices? So there is a necessity to have people like myself around who can go out there at the appropriate times of day to protest offices and bring highlight to the issues which are plaguing this society. But we are making a sacrifice for the masses. The question is there reciprocity? Is the mass prepared to make a sacrifice for us? We are out there day in, day out, representing the issues. But people are saying they can't lose a day's pay to come out and support us as we represent the issues. Some of you can't even lose a fraction of a day's pay to support those of us who support the issues. I told you already I'm going to be talking about money because money is a necessity. But it's not the only thing that matters. When last I came here and asked you for money? When last I came here and said, hey, what we are doing needs your support. Financial support. Physical support. I noticed y'all ain't bringing the physical support. Y'all ain't turning up. Nobody ain't coming. Or few people are coming. What about financially? I can say the same thing. Few people are supporting the programming. Few people are supporting the protest. Few people are supporting anything financially. So we are really there. Or we are really dep on. We are really dep on. You ain't coming physically. You ain't putting your boots on the ground. You ain't contributing financially for what is happening on the ground. You're not contributing financially for programming like this. But you're there every morning. You're there every night. You're there morning, noon, and night. Once there's program, you're there. Where you really dep on? One friend of mine said, you call people like those freeloaders. Are we a set of freeloaders? We just expect others to do the work for us? And it must cost us nothing. It must not cost us a day's pay. It must not cost us time. It must not cost us emotion. No sacrifices are we prepared to make? You can't get anything like that. Unless you're prepared to make sacrifices, you're not going to get what you want. And I think that is a big part of what is happening in our society. Guyanese are not prepared to make sacrifices. decide that the power company is wronging us and we're not getting redress, and all we talk and talk and talk and talk, nobody's listening to us, burn down the damn power company. And let them build it from scratch so they're going to build it better. Shoot, boy, if I do that, you ain't going to get no power. You ain't going to get electricity. The £5 beef forgot in the freezer going to spoil. The box of smuggled chicken that I got the other day at a good market price was spoiled. No. I gonna go sleep in blackout. I'm gonna go light flambeau. It's like I going back to the 70s. No. I can't do that. That is too great a sacrifice to me. But I gripe every day that the power company is inimical. Their behavior is inimical to me in some way, shape, or form. Right? If I don't make a sacrifice, I can't get what I want. Or let's extend it. If others don't make a sacrifice, many of us will not get what we enjoy. I like to use examples closest to me. The news is awash with information. 25 contracts in Buxton to 25 contractors to repair 25 bridges. Let's put aside this small change of $56 million that the government said they're spending. Right? Let us forget the fact that the bridges are not going to last a lifetime. Let us examine the benefits of those bridges. First and foremost, one of those bridges I understand is one where a pregnant woman fell through about a year or so ago. The residents in that area will not have to be fearful of falling through that bridge. That's a psychological benefit. We feel safer using this bridge. Taxi drivers will not now refuse to cross that bridge. So taxi drivers now might be able to take us right up to our doorsteps, our gates. That's more comfort for us and more utility for us. We can now cater for larger loads, whether it's grocery or whatever, supplies for our businesses and so on, because we know it is not going to be transported to spot. That's a benefit, financial and otherwise, peace of mind. And you can look at all of the other ways that those bridges will benefit people in the community. If you look at it from the angle of the contractors, forget that they're large and medium scale contractors who have to pretend that they're small contractors to get little work. People who are accustomed to do 200 and 300 million jobs had to come down to the level of accepting less than $3 million jobs because they had to brand themselves small contractors to get those jobs. Forget that. The positive is they get a job, they're going to catch a small piece. I assume so. They got a little bit, another morsel on the table It's a benefit to them. But how did these opportunities come about? How did these opportunities come about? Sacrifices were made. Were those sacrifices made by those residents? For the greater part, no. Were those sacrifices made by those contractors? For the greater part, no. Those sacrifices were made by people who participated in protest. People who stood on the roadside in the hot broiling sun, as we like to say, chant down Babylon and made demands for this community and African Guyanese communities across the land. So the wider populace, and I said I'm using an example close to me, the wider BUXTONIan populace, Buxton Friendship populace, are benefiting from the sacrifices of a few. Have they stopped and taken account of those sacrifices? Have they acknowledged those sacrifices? Have they contributed in any way to the efforts of those who made those sacrifices? That's what we have to ask ourselves. Because unless you make a sacrifice, you have no benefit to get. What are you prepared to sacrifice? Will you sacrifice some time and come on the picket line? So far it looks like no. You certainly ain't going to sacrifice your peace of mind because you're losing sleep at nights to think about who coming at you because you were on a picket line. You're losing sleep at nights to study who coming at you because you have mashed the toes of supporters of the government and even opposition parliamentarians and so on. So you're making no sacrifice really, but you're enjoying the benefits. Have you stopped to think, hey, maybe I can't go there physically, but the protesters have to spend money to get to spot. Let me support them by offering some money to refund them for traveling expenses. Let me support them by offering some money for refreshments like water and so on. Kams Tv has operating expenses. Let me contribute something on a daily, weekly, monthly basis so that it can ease the burden on them. Are you considering those as sacrifices? Have you ever stopped to think that those are things you can do? I guess not. Because like I said, few people are on the protest line and few people support what we do financially. I'm not the type, I usually say, I'm not the type to come here and sit every morning and we need your help. Things bad. We ain't gonna get for breed if you don't give us a financial contribution. I don't do it. I'm a DNA. I can't do it. It eats out half of my body. Right? It hurts my ego. But there's some mornings like these I will come and I will talk about it. Because you all have to take responsibilities too. How much are you prepared to sacrifice today? 2 bears? That's well, $500 or $600. That's too much. Okay. Is that equal to your bus fare to and from work? I would want to believe so, right? So you can't sacrifice a bus fare for a day for other people to go there and protest and so on. for us to maintain this program and so on. You see how practical I can get? Right? See how practical this thing can be? There are lots of people who believe that supporting these programs, Kams TV, BUXTONIAN Morning Time, Politics 101, and what we do at Kams TV, Kams Saturday Rhythms and so on. Supporting these programs financially is the sole responsibility of those in the diaspora. Why y'all want to think so? Why would you want to think so? Locals don't earn money? Locals don't benefit from these programs? Locals don't benefit when we protest? As a matter of fact, all of what we do benefit locals more than it benefits those in the diaspora. But again, everybody wants somebody to carry their burdens, and they must make no sacrifice and get all of the benefits. This morning I'm calling it for what I see it as. This program wants money to continue to do what it does. And it's not just sitting here and talk with you. It is traveling to communities, highlighting problems. You know, some people don't like when I get like this, but it's one of my most enjoyable times sometimes, you know. Remembering these things. In the middle of the night, my phone will ring. And somebody will come, Mr. Amsterdam, I want you to come to Huaha and highlight this problem we got here. The road bad, 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 and women getting abortion against their will. All right, I can come. Can you get the residents up together? How many of you live in the area? It's not for we. Can you get the residents organized? And choose a day when I can come? But Mr. Amsterdam, I gotta go to work in the morning. You want your problem highlighted. You want me to come. And you can sacrifice a few hours or a day to organize your community so that I can highlight a problem that is plaguing this community. And the possibility is, we'll get fixed when I light it, and so all of you are more comfortable. You didn't ask me, Mr. Amsterdam, how much gas it takes you to get from Buxton to Uaha? Mr. Amsterdam, do you do anything economically that you will have to put on pause for the time that it takes you to get to Uaha and back to highlight our problem? What are you losing, Mr. Amsterdam, when you come to highlight? No, you are considering that. But you can't afford a few hours or a day to organize the residents in your community to highlight their plight. And even if you are willing to sacrifice a few hours or a day, the rest of the community can't afford to do it. But it must be done by one sacrificial lamb. Well, I crucified Christ. What are they going to do to me? Huh? What will they do to me? I'm just, this morning, like I said, I'm having a conversation with you to show how inconsiderate we can be as human beings. Right? How inconsiderate we can be. Everybody wants to raid the barn. Nobody wants to plant the corn. And that is why protest comes across as it is in this society. Nobody wants to sacrifice anything for better, but they want better. Every mean, it's where the parliamentarians, I can understand y'all asking for the parliamentarians, they get paid to do this thing, man. They get a little stipend about $200,000 a month and so. A friend of mine said to me the other day, Mr. Amsterdam, maybe people don't contribute to you, your program financially because you don't come and you ask them every day. Sometimes you don't ask them at all. And so they feel that you are so comfortable, you are so better off that you don't need any contributions to keep your work going, whatever you're doing for this society. Well, I tell y'all now, I'm better than any of you. We all have to make sacrifices together. Now, Farouk Haq is asking the question or making the statement, whatever. People are benefiting from what the government is doing. Why should they protest? Good question. The workers of Gaisuku, this cabal since they got into office has been pouring billions into Gaisuku. The workers of Gaisuku are perhaps the highest paid in this country, or among the highest paid in this country from the coffers of this country. Why do they protest? They're benefiting from all of the billions being poured into Gaisuku. Why do they protest? Maybe, using Farouk Haq's logic, Indo-Guyanese have no reason to protest. We don't see them protesting anyhow. They don't have to protest for their benefits from this government. It comes to them on a platter. Just over the weekend, or over the last week, billions were shared out across communities dominated by Indo-Guyanese to fisher folk. Have you seen billions shared out to the public service? Have you seen billions shared out in sectors dominated by Afro-Guyanese? What benefits are Afro-Guyanese really getting from this government, according to Farouk, that they shouldn't protest? And this is the idiocy, the dunceness, the illiteracy, the intellectual laziness that I talk about. I just explained on this program not so long ago how it is the government was forced to award 25 contracts in Buxton to 25 contractors. Forget the size of the contract and the discrimination and all of that. But I just explained how they were forced to award 25 contracts because they're those of us who protested and made demands. You want me to tell you what would have been better? If after the protest by those of us who protested and caused the government to come to quote-unquote the table with BUXTONIAN contractors, if those very contractors had stood up as a means of protest and said, we're not going to accept your pittance, we're not going to allow you to label all of us here as small contractors, and so give us minuscule contracts. We are a different category of contractors, and we are going to demand that you put us in our appropriate categories, and you respect our appropriate categories, and you award us contracts based on our capacities. That would have been a different level of protest. It would have been a continuation of protest that we started, that brought them to the table. And so instead of 25 contractors getting 25 contracts in Buxton for under $3 million each, maybe 10 of those contractors who might really and truly qualify as small contractors would have gotten 25 bridges in Buxton to do as small contractors, while the other 15 contractors would have gotten larger contracts in other areas to do. So yes, that is why people must protest. What benefits are they enjoying from the government that they ought not to protest? A government that goes into African Guyanese communities, constructed on ancestral lands, and break down their properties and break down their homes and bully them to accept compensation and put them off of their ancestral lands. What benefits are they enjoying that they must not protest? Farouk Haq, tell us. A government that discriminates against the public sector because predominantly African Guyanese work in the public sector. They give no wage increase of significance. They supersede them in every area, every sector of the public service, where people who are lesser qualified, whether by academia or by experience. They mistreat them on the jobs. What benefits are they getting that they ought not to protest? Farouk Haq. What benefits? These are the kinds of discussion I like. I've heard words say a whole lot of them that cricket and so on. Let's talk about our cricket. I said in closing last night, it's 8 minutes past 8 o'clock hour. I don't mobilize just now. On the WPS program last night, I said, I'm patriotic. I love my country, I love my people. I will stand up for them. But my patriotism will never extend. Never extend to anything used as a vessel of corruption in this society. I mean, they say who got eyes to see will see, who no know, who no know fart for no. But which of you can convince me that I must support CPR cricket in Guyana or anywhere else, as a matter of fact? Particularly in Guyana. Who can convince me that I must support the Amazon warrior because what it does, it flies the Guyanese flag. The Amazon warrior cricket franchise is being used in this country to rip each and every citizen off. Taxpayers' money financing it. At least when the PPP in government. I see EXXON is a big sponsor of CPR cricket in Guyana. Rocky Prasad said I'm a racist because I won't support the Amazon warriors. I'm a patriot. Who are the beneficial owners of the Amazon warriors? Who are the beneficial owners of Amazon warriors? Maybe Rocky Prasad knows what he's talking about, and that is why he deems me a racist. Get behind the scenes and find out who are the beneficial owners of the Amazon warriors and how taxpayers' monies are used or siphoned off through the Amazon warriors and through CPR cricket. Let me explain this to you. Cricket in this country Don't worry the large crowds you're seeing at cricket right now. They don't result from box office ticket sales. Tell anybody I say that. The large crowds at CPL cricket in Guyana do not result from ticket sales at a ticket office or box office, whatever they want to call it. The government, this corrupt cabal, buys out thousands of those tickets with taxpayers' money and distributes them in ministries to employees, distributes them in the schools now. They're buying tickets and sending them to the schools for 4th and 5th formers to go to the cricket matches. Sherrod spoke last night about tickets being given out like wildfire in some place called Ocean Spray on the west side, I think, Lenora side. What do you think? The fat guy went to pocket and buy tickets to distribute to the Ocean Spray community? Go and check the spending of the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture and see how much money they have expended on CPL tickets from the taxpayers' money. And then you tell me I must support cricket. At least by going to it. You tell me that. Cricket is just another vessel by which the PPP carts off monies from the coffers of this country. Angela George is making a good point. Do you see any other sport getting the kind of support that cricket gets in this country in terms of sponsorship and so on? The Obodwo said you is a joker. You're right, you don't even understand the English language. So you're going to understand what I'm talking about. Business is what propels a country. Yes, business propels a country. But not corruption. Not corrupt business practices. Should I support something which is corrupted? No, I won't. I don't care how you see it. I don't care how you see it. Racist? I should want to support cricket Amazon warriors. With names like Hetty Maya and so on. Look at the high performers in the team. They look like me, man. I should want to support them. But because one who looks like me is present, I should support the problem. Zacchaeus messaged me the other day and cussed me out for calling Super Mark Phillips a jackass. He said I'm disrespectful because Mark Phillips is black. And I have no right calling him a jackass, even if he's not doing what I consider the right thing. But I speak truth to power. You could black like me. You could black like a tar. As long as you support oppression and corruption in any form, I will call you out. I will call you out. So that's my problem. I can't support CPL cricket. I can't go to CPL cricket. Because I'm just helping them to cover up the theft. Sold out crowds. Yes, sold out crowds. But how were the tickets sold? How did it become sellout? The government buy it out with taxpayers' money. And the returns on that buyout goes to a particular group of people. Yeah. As stupid, a big. I ain't stupid. The lines are open 6225933 is the number to call. Yeah, Glenn Gordon. Thanks for telling me that. Was it? Oh, CPL is owned by Indian owners, come from motherland, the country of India. Thanks for telling me. Who owns the Amazon warriors? Understand this. It was my firm belief that no business above a certain level of investment gets done in this country unless a sue is involved and the PPP higher-ups get their cut. And if you don't know that, I can understand why you are the way you are. Call it there? Call all the line. Call it live.
Good morning all. I'm glad I'm very thankful this morning that we brought up the topic about support and sacrifice because that's what we're lacking. People like you said, like you mentioned, people don't see it in the program begging every day, so they think that it's okay. It's not true. You know, you got everything they decided to be careful. And so they choose not to support financially, physically, or no other way. But I just want to appeal to the supporters of the opposition and everyone who opposed this government of what it's doing, all the corruption and all the racism and all these things. This thing, it don't just happen by you watching the program, you throw into the program, and you're making a few comments to man. Other things are needed as well, right? Other resources are needed. So we need to come out, we need to put our bodies on the line, we need to put into our pockets and support this cause because this is very important. And I like that brought up the same topic this morning. Because even when some of them they're not even looking at the program, they're watching the program, and they don't even want to share their life. So others could actually see it, and the numbers could keep rising. You know, so we need to come out there and we need to support this thing. Don't stop thinking about our jobs or whatever, right? Because we are already in it, right? We are already starving. We are already being killed. And all these things. So what are we securing? We don't secure anything, right? So we have to push back against this oppression. For all this stuff, because there will be a time. It will be so much that we won't be able to defend ourselves. Right? So let's get out there. Let's support these programs financially, physically, or whatever. That's my time. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you ready? Are you ready now? Ready for your calling. Morning, neighbor, morning. Morning, neighbor, morning. Welcome to another program of BUXTONIAN Morning Time. It is 7 hours 23. Y'all think I'm late? No, I'm not late. I'm deliberate.
Kissed by the warm breezes of the Caribbean, this orange beauty has 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, large modern kitchen, and a living room with an open concept. This lovely home is within walking distance to the sea, where you can take a dip in the salt waters and feel refreshed. Verone's cheerful country manor, located at Tushin, West Coast, Demerara. Bookings are available on Airbnb. Contact Veronica at 516-524-1559 for more details. We hope to see you soon.
Welcome to another program of BUXTONIAN Morning Time at 24 minutes past the 7 o'clock hour. Like I said, I'm not late, I'm deliberate. But y'all still in share the life to get to where we want it to be. So share the life, no man. I'll share the life. This morning, Dr. Hinds, Professor David Hinds is going to be on, and we're going to be talking about issues in the society. Last week we missed him. There was a mix-up last week. Am I right? Last week? Yeah. And so he wasn't on. But this week he's definitely going to be on. And we're going to be talking about the things. How have you been? How was your yesterday and your last night? Did you make some money yesterday and get some rest last night? You know, mankind seems to believe that that is the most important thing, or those are the most important things. Making money and getting some rest, right? You know, when we talk about people having life in London, we say they could eat, sleep, and shit as they like. There's no work involved in that. Eat, sleep, and shit as you like. There's no work involved in that. You're living the good life if you can do that. How many of you live in the good life? But will your good life transcend the good life for your offspring, for your next generations? Right? As a matter of fact, will your good life even be so good for you in later years? If all you want to do is eat, sleep, and shit, you don't exercise, you don't burn calories, your body becomes sluggish, and so as you age, you start realizing that, hey, eating, sleeping, and shitting is not the best things in life. There are other things that must be added to that equation to make your life better. Right? And so I'm asking you, yes, you can eat. You have a roof over your head. You wear clothes. Some will say they provide for their families. But is that all that matters for a good life? How do you feel when you look out the door or the window and you recognize that your community is in squalor? You live in squalor. Those of you will tell me, I ain't living in no squalor. I live in the Young Professionals Housing Scheme. How do you look when you look out and you realize that if you spit too hard, it could go into your neighbor's living room? What quality of lives are we really living? Is it enough that we have a job, that we earn income? Is it enough? These are things we must ask ourselves. Is it enough when we are quote unquote getting by and we look all around us and we see oppression, depression? We see a set of people being pushed to the periphery of the state, of the society. We come to recognize that because there are others who are being pushed to the periphery of the society, there are others who are so oppressed that they can't put a meal properly on their table. And they will come to a point of desperation where they will want to take it from me because I have it. How do we feel when that happens? Oh, they can't take nothing from me. I go in and get a 9mm. I call in a doctor at the office of the president and pay you $1 million and get a licensed firearm. Or get a license for the firearm. And then I go in and buy the firearm. Because I got to protect what I got. And them out there who ain't got nothing, can't come and take what I got. Right? How do you feel? Is that a good life? Does that represent the best state of life? Living in life in London, as we like to say. You know, I usually tell you, a lot of times I don't write what I come to you and talk about in the mornings. I get inspired. Maybe because I overthink all the time. I have all of these negatives in my head that I need to address. I don't generally sit and write. But when I start to think and discuss things, memories flood me. 2 weeks ago I was in Pontrench Dam talking with those residents who are going to be displaced so that government can pass a 3-lane road, 3-lane highway through the communities of West La Penitence and Albistown. And I stopped at the head of the street and I was talking to a group of young men there. And there, that interaction has taught me a whole lot about them and our black society, our communities, our country. When I went down further into the street, I spoke with, of course, what's his name? The guy from the gym and so on, and the other folks further along. And I also learned from them. We will always have in our communities those people who believe that they're so comfortable that they don't have to do anything else. But they don't pay attention to what made them comfortable. For example, this young quote-unquote businessman I talked to at the top of the street said he is a contractor. And he is happy for the development that is going to take place because it will force some people with certain kinds of mentality out of the area. Yeah. Certain people with a lazy mentality going to get forced out of the area. They're going to get moved. I'm paraphrasing, but I think that is what he said. Close, those words are as close to what he said. So I asked him, I said, how did you get your start as a contractor? He said, I think his grandmother decided that of all the people around her, she was going to hand her property to him. At some point, I pointed out you had a start. You had a positive start. You had assets to start with. Because that property started to be rented. He started renting it out. He tried other things along the way, certainly. But he arrived in my mind, or in his mind. And so we say we're comfortable. We don't look at those who did not get anything, whose grandparents had nothing to hand to them. And so they're really starting from the bottom. They got to pull themselves up from the bootstrap, as we say. But we believe that we are so comfortable that we have no business concerning ourselves with those who are not comfortable and those who are oppressed and suppressed. But let us find ourselves in problems in that very community. And we will come to find out it is the oppressed and the suppressed who, in many instances, run to our rescue first. Because those who are comfortable like we are will remain in their comfort and won't bat an eyelid. Keep that in mind. It's Wednesday. Dr. Hinds is on the program. We can continue this line of thought, this train of thought, this conversation, maybe tomorrow. But you have a lot to think about. I hope you have a lot to think about. Dr. Hinds, good morning. Welcome to the program. You're muted.
Good morning.
How you been? It's 2 weeks since we last saw you.
Well, I'm on Politics 101 in the evenings.
Well, let me burst your bubble before you continue. There are people who will only look at BUXTONIAN morning time.
Okay, all right.
Right? Good. So you have an account to them also.
Okay.
All right, so it's been a while. Well, we know we missed last week for whatever reasons. But so much has been happening in the society nevertheless. I want to start this morning with something that not surprised me, but quite coincident, call it a pleasant surprise, call it whatever. Yesterday morning on my program, the topic of CPL cricket came up. And I was saying to the viewers, don't ask me about no CPL cricket. I ain't supporting no CPL cricket. I ain't going to no cricket because it is a vessel of corruption used by this current administration. Get behind the scenes and find out who are the beneficial owners of Amazon warriors and stuff like that. And look at how taxpayers' money is being used to buy out thousands of tickets and distribute for distribution in particular communities and to get favors and all of that. And so, while I'm a patriot, I ain't supporting no cricket because of the fact that I see it as a vessel of corruption. Someone said it's uniting. Cricket brings the people together. And my response to that was, if cricket is uniting, why, if you look at the Afro-Guyanese communities, there are no proper cricketing facilities. There are no cricketing academies. In Buxton, for example, the Minister of Sport actually instructed that no cricket must be played on the Buxton bar ground after he pulled down the zinc fence and put up a short chain link fence and stuff like that. And lo and behold, when I went to social media late in the day, I saw that your topic for last night's Politics 101 was going to be cricket, clutching at straw. Because there are people here who perhaps would not have looked at your program. Give us a synopsis of what that discussion was about.
Well, I'm trying to tease out the importance of cricket to the West Indian psyche, and that cricket is, I don't know the extent today, but historically cricket has been used as a tool of liberation against colonialism, imperialism, external domination. Insofar as internal racial unity is concerned, cricket has not been an example of internal unity. Insofar as it has brought the islands together to play as one West Indies team, yes, but even that has been fraught with insularity. In 1967, for example, Barbados played the rest of the world on its own. Barbados felt it was so powerful that it wanted to go alone. And it played the rest of the world. And so Frank Warrell died during that game. And as they were bringing his body from Jamaica, they circled the ground that the game was being played. Barbados never went that way again. But there's always been insularity. But we have managed to stay together as a West Indies team. But when it comes to racial unity in Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana, cricket has not been able to forge that unity. Some people here may be too young to remember. In the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and I think quite into the 90s, I don't know how prevalent it is now, when Pakistan and India toured the West Indies, the majority of East Indians would support India and Pakistan over the West Indies. They would want to deny it now. But that was patently clear. I used to be in the cricket grounds as a little boy and a big man, and you experience that. So when people go out for a 2020 festival match, now this is not a Guyana team. This team is not a Guyana team. You got 11 players playing there. 6 of them are from Guyana, 5 from other places. And people are going out in numbers because it's a party. CPL is a party. It's not a serious cricket game. If next week you bring West Indies versus any team in the world, you're not going to get that crowd. I guarantee you that. You are not going to get that crowd. It's not a reaction to cricket. It's a reaction to party. And as David Rudder says in Trinity to the Bone, how we party is not how we vote. How we party is not how we vote. People going out there to a party, they're having a good time. And if you sit down in the ground and you are having a good time at a party and the person sitting down next to you is an Indian or an African, as the case may be, why don't we take a drink? We've always done that. In spite of our political differences, we have always, when we meet up as Guyanese, West Indians, we've always had a good time. But once the party is over, that's it. We gone back into our silos. We gone back into our silos. You know, Naim Chan, a commentator and a good friend, said on the Gerdari Frederick Hisson program on Monday night, when he saw Moti and Etmaya Hogg, he thought of me. I thought of David Hinds and how those people are unbugging racial unity. Moti and Etmaya Hoggin is nothing new. Chandapal and Upahog, I'm old enough to know that Sobers and Kanai Hogg, Alituran and Lloyd Hogg. What is this big deal of people going out to a festival match of cricketers hogging? The cricketers hogging, however, have not brought racial unity to Guyana, because when those guys are on the cricket field, power is not at stake. Power, political power is not at stake there. Economic power is not at stake at Providence. Providence is a party. If political power were at stake there, if economic power were at stake, you would see a different reaction from our people. But no power is at stake there. We're having a good time. And people are trying to translate that to mean there is some big racial unity that is there. Give me a break. Give me a break. That is why I'm saying these people are clutching at straws, because we have exposed them. We have exposed the apartheid. And if you notice, every day, some one of them is responding to apartheid. Responding there. And that's where we have them. They have to defend themselves, and they're not an apartheid state. So they see Etmaya and Moti Hogg, and they say, look, the Indian guy and black cricketer hogging. Guyana is not an apartheid state. Look, you have 10,000 people in the studio, in stadium. Black people and Indian people, look, they're jumping up together. Well, if that's the proof that Guyana is not an apartheid state, they're clutching at straws. That was essentially my argument.
But Dr. Hinds, there are two things I want to say to add to this whole discussion about them clutching at straws. Sarwan and Chris Gayle hugged. And Chris Gayle had a lot of nasty things to say or expose about Sarwan in that T20 fallout after Chris Gayle came to Ghana and was taken to Linden, I think, by Kush or somebody. And eventually he was booted from the T20 team and replaced by Sarwan in some positions and so on. And they hugged because they played together at some point in time, even when the West Indies team, right? But that doesn't say that there isn't that difference, let me say that, among them. And this apartheid that they're using cricket to perhaps try to negate, the evidence of apartheid is present in the cricket ground. Look at where the patrons go. Who goes where? Who can afford what? Who sits where? Examine the numbers and you will see whether or not there's apartheid. You will see the state of economic deprivation, I want to call it, in the society. Look at where the tickets are given out. Who gets what? Right? Because this government, through its Ministry of Sports and Presidency and all of them, they give out a lot of tickets. Let's examine who got what. Look at the makeup of the patrons in those stands, and you will see the apartheid in the economic discrimination. So the very thing that they use or attempt to use to say, hey, this thing is not true, the evidence is right there. But as we're talking about that, and the other issues, let me turn your attention to the Bishop from the Ministry of Public Works, Public Infrastructure. I don't know if you saw that article of Farm to Market Road established in Boris, and someone commenting that this road is better than what city dwellers use. The response of the bishop was, yes, we are doing things. And if the residents of Georgetown, or let the residents of Georgetown vote for the PPP, and we will do things to them and city council. What's your reaction to such arrogance?
He's being honest. That's my reaction. He's saying what we ought to know. We shouldn't have to wait for the bishop to say that to know that. I think some of our supporters, understandably so, because we have love, and some of our supporters have to hear these things for themselves. He's just being honest. It's like when Jack Dio said the PPP is an Indian political party. People were all surprised. What are you saying? What we already know. Let's get on with the game. That is why when they ask me for evidence of that Guyana is an apartheid state, I usually say to them, why are you asking me for evidence? You all know the evidence. Look, what the bishop said there, if he said that, what he said there, that is the evidence. Don't ask me for the evidence.
And that statement is also in keeping with his utterances in the National Assembly. If I review where this money is going,
yeah, he says social cohesion will be disrupted. the people are giving us the evidence.
Indeed. Last week I intended to talk with you about a visit I made to Pontrench Dam with Takumo Gonse 2 Sundays ago, because there's a 3-lane highway that is going to pass from Saffron Street to Cemetery Road through the communities of West La Penitence and Aboystone. There are a number of residents who occupy what they refer to as the government reserve there. I understand it was actually the trench and it was filled in, right? And they were given what many considered short notice to remove. The residents claimed that they were told they had 3 hours and then they had 3 days. Or they had 30 minutes and then they had 3 days to remove. But what is happening currently, some persons have moved. There are others who, up to when we went there, were still there. And the development was taking place around them. I compared that to a visit that Ali and Nanlag made to Annandale North. To the seashore, a number of squatters occupied land there when the coalition went into office in 2015. So let's say about 5 years, 7 tops. The people on the Pontrench Dam, some of them have been there for 40+ years, according to what they said. Nanlal and Ali came to Annandale and said to the people at Annandale, listen, you have to remove from here. We are going to organize so that you get relocated into housing schemes. We are going to organize so that you can go to the banks for financing. Again, simply we'll say there is evidence of apartheid. But I want you to address, and let me add to that. Last week, a team of officials and police went from the Ministry of Housing, led by one Mr. Yaron, into Mocha, Arcadia area, Caneview, and proceeded to break down a 2-story concrete structure belonging to one of the residents there. Despite protestations that this land is ancestral land. I want you to address the whole difference in treatment for removal and relocation, compensation, and consideration for what? Human dignity.
Well, I mean, it's self-evident. It's self-evident. And the strategy of the PPP is is clear. That is, the objective is domination, political and economic domination. That's their objective. You see it in 2020. The 2020 election was and is a defining moment in Guyanese politics. Defining. Because that wasn't an election. That was more than an election. It was a case of an election being used to transfer power, total power, to one side of the political divide, one side of the ethnic divide. And that transfer of power was done against the backdrop of other developments in and around the society. That election was about US-Venezuela relations. That election was about EXXON and its economic foothold in Guyana. That election was about who governs, who gets to distribute the wealth that is coming to Guyana. That has always been a salient question, and it has been kicked down from 1955 to the present. It has been kicked down the road. And 2020, the decision was made finally. Who gets to unilaterally distribute the resources that are coming? And so 2020 was a defining moment. Look across the political aisle. What do you see? You see Indian Guyanese political elites, Indian Guyanese economic elites, Indian Guyanese cultural elites, Indian Guyanese independent activists and thinkers, Indian Guyanese Muslims, Indian Guyanese Hindus, Indian Guyanese Christians. They're all sitting on the same bench. It's amazing. Freddie Kissoon and Ravidev are sitting next to each other in the same pew. Never happened before. Freddie Kissoon is an urban Indian who represented a particular Indian outlook up until 2020. And he couldn't coexist with Ravidev. Ravidev is an Indian cultural nationalist who has no time for an urban Indian. But Ravidev is sitting next to that urban Indian today. Those in the PPP think that Freddie Kissoon is wild and crazy. But they're sitting in the same pew today. What 2020 has done is that it has brought the Indian elites together in a common agreement on what. It doesn't mean that they agree on everything. They still have their disagreements. But they agree on one thing, is that the destiny of Indian Guyanese over the next 3 to 4 decades has to be secured. And it will be secured with Indian unity. From Glenlal to Kissoon to Dev to Bharat Jagdeo, you name them. They're all agreed on one thing. It means, therefore, if you are going to construct Indian hegemony in all of the institutions of the society, you have to answer the question, why are you excluding black people? And your answer to that is that black leaders have destroyed black people. Black people are a burden. They need help because their leaders have abandoned them. They have cultural problems. They don't have role models. They are susceptible to violence and violent narratives. So they mark themselves and Rickford Borks and David Hinds. You have to discredit them among black people. And so the script is there. So what you do with black people is to say, you are second class, not because anybody did you anything. Your leaders have made you second class citizen or third class citizen. And what we're going to do, we're going to move you up from third class to second class. And as we are moving you, we have to move Indian people too. The thing is that we are moving Indian people into a more secured first class. So the average black person who doesn't have an overall understanding of what's happening around him will say, what is progress? Look, I have 52 bridges that they're going to build $52 million. There are 26 of us. 52 million is big money. But when you break it down, it's 2 million. An Indian guy goes to what he plays them on Main Street and blow that out in an hour. The $2 million that you're giving these boys and telling them is progress. An Indian dude goes to the Palm Court and blows that $2 million out in an hour. But the average little contractor in the village doesn't have that panoramic understanding of what's happening around the society. And so he falls into the thing that, boy, 52 million is progress. It's 2 million for you. And by the time you finish paying the workers and things, you carry home, unless you rob your workers and pay them next to nothing, you're probably carrying home $1 million, which an Indian guy blows in 15 minutes. So there is the overall plot in the society of how you do it. You see, in the past under Jack Dio, there was no science to the discrimination. It was raw. They have now worked out a way to make the discrimination appear palatable. And then they create this orphan alley that the Indian elites are pushing is different. What they're saying, look, he's different from Jack Dio. It's Jack Dio they're throwing under the bus. Right? But you see, Jack Dio's in the government. They want Jack Dio guile. But Jack Dio can be the face of the con. Because Jack Dio did it in your face. This orphan alley is a con. And they're constructing this con as the opposite of Jack Dio. And you hear the Indian elites, I am supporting Dr. Ali. Listen to their narrative. Very few of them is saying, I'm supporting the PPP. I am supporting Dr. Ali. So you're constructing Dr. Ali as this savior, this different kind of leader. And then you come up with this one Guyana. Our people like slogans: one people, one nation, one destiny. If you hear some black people who are, when they denounce one Guyana, they're juxtaposing it with one people, one nation, one destiny. Well, they're both slogans. They're both slogans. One was a PNC slogan, this one is a PPP slogan, and they're both slogans. And we people in the Caribbean, we like slogans. And the people have thrown this one guy out there, and the rest of us have to respond to it. What they don't like about the emerging apartheid state is that the emerging apartheid state, with one swipe of the pen, has destroyed one Guyana. The slogan now is emerging apartheid. And that is why they've responded so viscerally to the apartheid thing, because it has kicked the one Guyana thing out the door. Even the Indians now, the Indian elites, every day they're responding to apartheid. Because what we have done with the construction of apartheid is to denigrate and kicked out the window their one Guyana slogan. And so when you look at how they're going about, they're building the roads and all that thing you explain about Pontrench Dam and so on, it's part of that larger thrust. At least we're building a road, we're building a highway. In the process of building the highway, we are kicking you off lands that you were on for 40 years. But it's progress. And you hear some black people with it. You hear some black people with it. I am not worried that black people are calling it progress, because I think at the end of the day, your lived reality is what determines things. But for now, black people are into the thing is progress. You build a 4-lane highway, that's progress. How many lives are being destroyed and dislocated because you're building this highway? People are not going to see it now. When they begin to personally feel it, then they will see it. That is why I am not cursing the young men who get the $2 million to build 2 bridges. God knows that they and their family need it. But I'm very confident that they would recognize in short order the con, because they're being conned. They're given $52 million, and you go to the next community and they're given 10 times that. We have established that. But what I'm adding to the discourse here this morning is that that is drink money for the average Indian dude. He goes to Palm Court and knocked out in half an hour. And that is going to close in on this section of the black community that are not yet clear of the con game that is going on.
A con game indeed, like I pointed out. While they're singing about 56 million given to 25 contractors to do 25 bridges in Buxton. 100 million has been given to one Indian contractor to do a bridge in BV Triumph. And so the vast difference there is, like you suggested, one BUXTONIAN contractor may be able to take home $1 million, may. The man who gets a bridge for $100 million will be able to take home perhaps $20 million. He's 20 times better off.
That's right.
Right. And so
That's right.
the income gap, the opportunities to investment, all of it widens, right? Widens a whole lot. Like the farm to market road that Barbies gets as against other communities that get nothing, but blows in their back. Let's turn our attention now to the issue of protest. The lack of energy for protest, because like I pointed out in the situation in Mocha, here you have authorities breaking down the home of a resident, and you don't have a human barricade formed to protect that asset of the community by the residents. I'm hearing a lot of explanations. People are fed up. People feel betrayed by the opposition members. People are caught up in bread and butter struggle. People are fearful of losing their jobs. Do you subscribe to any of these suggestions?
No, if you take all of those things by themselves, if you take them one by one, you don't make the argument. And so I would not do that. Although I recognize that all of those factors determine whether people protest or not. Look, this is a human question. It's a human question. We try to make protest deterministic, you know, that if you come in my place, you break down a house illegally, I'm supposed to protest. And if you do that, you're turning the human being into a machine with somebody with a remote control, you know, controlling them. You're taking the humanity out of people. And we activists have to be very careful about that. I've been saying that for 2 years and more on this program. This thing that we have in our head, that if you do so, you're supposed to get this reaction. That's not how human beings operate. You study human beings, whether you study psychology, whether you study history, whether you study biology, whether you study politics, human beings are not that predictable. They're not that predictable. And we want to turn them into predictable animals. And in that sense, we're playing into the hands of the PPP. Because the PPP is saying the same thing. They're saying, look, we can beat up these people. And they're not going to protest because they're not listening to Kidaki and they're not listening to David Hinds. They are also turning our people into machines. People without soul, people without minds. They're saying, we will do this and you will not get a reaction from these people. And we are saying, you will do this and we're supposed to get a reaction from these people. And I reject. It's from both sides. Human beings are not animals that you can control with a remote control. You jump on their back and you beat them. My donkey. Yeah. Even animals does buck that system. And I am warning, I've been doing it for 2.5 years. Stop reducing our people to soulless, brainless machines. They're not. Human beings are not. You study protest and resistance all over the world. There are 2 types of resistance. there is spontaneous action. The human mind is partly spontaneous. Nobody knows. Nobody can direct it. And then there is what you call organized protest, which is the kind of protest that you go among people and you work with them. The old revolutionaries used to call, you say, you go among people and you educate them. I don't like that term, educate. And people are already educated. But you go among them and you work with them. So sometimes spontaneity and organization clash, and that's where you get the big protest. But you cannot, as Frederick Douglass said, you cannot expect plants to grow fruits if you don't till the soil and you don't water the plants. And we are falling into that trap. We are falling into that trap. And we are ending up at the same place that the PPP is ending up. And that is that our people are soulless and brainless. And so I reject that thing. I am, go and do the work. Go and do the work. If you're a serious political activist, no serious political activist will sit down and say, I will only do the work if people will come out. You go and do the work. So that's my position on this thing about why people are not coming out to protest and so on. I just think it's the wrong conversation. I think it's an obscene conversation. And I don't want to be part of it.
Thank you, Dr. Hinds. It's 12 minutes past the 8 o'clock hour. Anything you want to raise before you open the lines?
No, I am at your service. If you ask me the questions, I will respond to them.
Very well. The lines are home, therefore. 6225933 is the number to call. I noticed recently there was the installation of an IMC at the Linden Utility Services Co-op, and the Lindeners are now kicking up a storm to have that IMC removed. When it was installed at first, it would seem as though the Lindeners really didn't care three hoots, but now they are in the 8th day of protest, I think, to have that IMC removed. Is it?
Well, I mean, you notice you said they didn't care a hoot. How do you know they didn't care?
Well, I said it appeared as though.
Because they didn't come out and protest then, they didn't care. They're protesting now. Protest, they care. And when does care, when does don't care end and care begins? And they're reducing human beings to soulless, non-thinking people. The fact that they are protesting in its aid proves my point.
Well, the question I was asking, if it's a move too late, because you wait until the IMC is installed. You didn't challenge it then, but here you are challenging it weeks or months after.
Was 1838 too late when we came out of the plantation? Why we didn't come out in 1823 after the Demerara Rebellion? It was 1838, 15 years late. We cannot make those arguments about human behavior. We cannot. It's not the kind of reasoning that will take us to a place where people are come together and challenge the conditions around them. At the end of the day, it's consciousness. And consciousness is not a unilateral straight line thing. Activists, because some people call us entrepreneurs, some people call us hustlers, because we are always trying to give the people consciousness. Because we think we get consciousness. What Walter Rodney has taught us is that you go among people and you learn from them. Guyana puts it very philosophically. That is, you work among people, take the people's experiences, refine them, and give them back to people as political and cultural nourishment. They're activists in Linden. They're activists in Linden. And you have to give them some credit for the consciousness raising, not as a one-day phenomenon, but as a constant phenomenon. And if you engage in the groundings, as you ground with people, consciousness arises out. And it is that consciousness that drives political action. And you don't determine people must get consciousness as soon as an IMC is installed. Look, here is the consciousness, go and protest. That is mechanistic. And human beings don't operate like that. In fact, they will resent you for doing that. You're sure not to get anywhere with them if you're trying to turn them into things that you can manipulate. They will resent you.
Thank you. The lines remain open. We'll continue to keep the lines open while Dr. Hinds and I chat. Someone, Keith Henry is saying, listen. And I think it's in response to what you said. The activists, the leaders must go there and do the work, and don't say go in only if people will come. Kwame went out there and did the work alone. He got killed. Where was the show of support for his cause after he was executed? You care to address that?
The cause for which he was fighting occurred in 2015. The people gave government to Kwame Wing Party. And what are we talking about? I have to do a little stock like a Michael here. What are we talking about?
Did Kwame Wing Party give justice to Kwame Wing?
I am not discussing that. You asked me one question, which is what did we get in return for his sacrifice? His party got political power. What they did with it is another story.
Well, it's a logical question. Because the family is saying,
No. If you ask me the two questions together, you are pushing for the logical conclusion that he died in vain.
No, sir. Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. It's a kind of discourse that is taking place, right? Listen, this man sacrificed. He made the ultimate sacrifice. His family made the ultimate sacrifice, or they lost because of his ultimate sacrifice. The long run, in exchange to that, the society benefited because they had a change of government, which is what he was fighting for. How did that change of government assuage the turmoil and everything that the family was and still are going through, is going through?
Kinaki, I hear your question, but when you ask the two questions together, what you are driving at is that the lack of optimum performance by the government. If we come to that conclusion that the government did not use the 5 years effectively, then the conclusion is that ultimately Crummy Wing's death was in vain. And I'm saying I am not discussing the two questions together. I first of all have to discuss them separately. Because if I discuss them together, then I am making a leap. And I think we ought, that's what the PPP is doing. When they say that your government didn't do anything for you all, they're making one sweeping statement. And a proper analysis of the 5 years will show that the government did do some things for their supporters. They didn't do a lot of things for their support, but they did do something. Is what the old Marxists will call the dialectics. There's no one single straight line answer in political and social analysis. Political and social analysis has to be as complex as the problem is complex. If the coalition government, yes, it didn't do farm to road markets. Yes, it didn't do the cash grant at the WPA. Yes, it didn't tackle the African Guyanese problem as a problem that is unique in our multi-ethnic society. It didn't do those things. But it didn't lose the police to go and shoot the Clinton Axis of the world. You have to juxtapose the two. You have to look at them in its totality. And don't fall into the PPP trap by saying the government didn't do nothing for black people. It's one thing to say the government didn't do anything for its supporters. But then when you take the argument to race, then you are justifying the treatment that you are giving to this race. That this race has been abandoned by its own organic leaders. That this race is listless. That this race is needy. You are playing into that argument.
Well, you see, Dr. Hinds, let me be Elio. Let me don't describe myself here. The question is asked for clarity. The question is asked to give the professor the opportunity to explain to us laymen, the coalition supporters, the members of the African Guyanese Society, Black Society, whatever you will call it. The question is asked so that you can provide that clarity of understanding for us. It's not me wanting to play into the hands of the PPP.
I agree with that, but now is not the time for devil's advocate. Now is the time for clear analysis and intentional analysis. Yes, a year ago, yes, but we are at this point now, we have to engage in intentionality. Now is not the time for black people to play devil's advocate. Now is the time for black people to be black advocates.
Well,
and that's my point. That's my point. When I hear the devil's advocate question, I'm saying maybe at another juncture in history. At this juncture in history, we have to be intentional about our narratives. We have to be intentional about our questions. And we cannot play devil's advocate. We should not, because the other side is going to take advantage.
But I take that, but what I'm saying is, if the masses are grappling with these questions, unless we address them, whether we call it as devil advocacy or not, unless we address them, we don't help them to come to an understanding of what they're grappling with.
Yeah, and I am not denying it. I'm just saying, don't ask me to do it from a position of devil's advocate. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you. I can't take your call now. We can talk about it later. What's his name? Quietly. All right, I'll take his call. Caller, hold the line, please. Quietly. A year has passed since our in Boston was murdered by the agents of the state. I'm not sure that I read in the press about it. I'm not sure that I heard of any discussion about it. Is this another black brother just murdered by the state and forgotten?
That's a question for me.
Yes, it's a question for you.
Well, the questioner
Because
is
the entire
raising-
black society.
The questioner is raising the name Orin Boston. So he has not been forgotten. What again? I gotta do the circle, Michael. What are we talking about? You are raising Orin Boston and saying he been forgotten. No, you have not forgotten him. And why do you think you're the only one who remembers him?
So then the flip side is, why is there no public, quote unquote, struggle for his killers to be brought to justice?
What is there is there a public struggle for anything?
Good morning.
Is there a public struggle for anything? Come on, brothers. Let's be real.
Calling your line, good morning.
Good morning, Kadaki, and good morning, Mr. Hinds. I really,
Good morning.
I would tend to agree with what Mr. Hinds is saying in terms of, and I think I mentioned it last week, we should not, we try, you know, we're always in the position to be so stern on each other. We always try to put our people down instead of giving them the motivation, encouraging them. They may not be able to come out and protest or show you support because we've seen how the system or the install regime uses it to get at our people. So I personally would agree with what Mr. Hinds is saying. I mean, they may not be able to come out and show support that, yes, we should protest or we should show our discontent in the treatment of our people, but there are many ways in which we can show protest and disagreement with what's going on. So we should try not to bash our people instead of encouraging. Because people, our support, or the leaders of our groups, they have the pulpit to encourage and motivate our people, but we're not doing it. Instead of that, we're bashing our people. That's not the way to do it. We have seen the regime use, in many instances, the opportunity, and this is the opportunity that we are aware of, how to mobilize our people. And we are not doing it. We are allowing our oppressors to use our people to their own advantage. So let our people, programs like yours, Kadaki, Sherrod, Mark, and so on, encourage the people. The enemies are doing it. So you got to try and find ways other than, okay, some may not be able to come out and protest to show support, but you have the mechanism to get out to the people. You might think that your program is not doing enough. It's doing enough. We just need that extra effort. And I would like to ask Mr. Hinds on the fact on some of our lands, the lands which were inherited or which were bought by our ancestors. And now the regime is sharing those lands, so it's friends and foe. I want to ask Mr. Hinds, now, those lands, according to the constitution. Is there any way in which our people can, because I am not sure, how can they get these lands from our ancestors? Because we have proof that those lands are ours. How can we get those lands back?
Thank you, caller.
That's my contribution.
Thank you, caller. Caller live, good morning.
Hi. I would like to get on the air.
Pardon?
This comes?
Yes, you are live on here.
Yeah. I would like to say a few things. At least I really agree with
Call on the line, please. On the line for a bit. Are you listening to
yes.
something in the background? You need to turn it down, please.
Okay.
Good, you can go ahead. Thank you.
Yes. I want to agree with Dr. Hinds.
Caller?
Yeah.
You have to focus on the conversation. We're having a phone conversation, not the program. The listeners will hear you.
Okay. I want to agree with Dr. Hinds with what he's saying. What's happening is that we're getting infiltration by the PPP. They are using individuals in the black community, and they are filtering things that appears to be logical. Take, for instance, you mentioned about what the PNC do for black people. That is a totish and a stupid question. How can is that the way that we're supposed to run the country? That when one race they just look after one race? That is not right. And that was a stupid question. But what happened? We, the black people, take that on and start attacking one another for that. But that is not right. That was never right. And many times when I hear that question, I know that thing came from the PPP party. They go about and injecting it into the black people, and they get furious and start keeping away. What are they doing? What are they doing? And they just only filling an elite, they even not filling the whole set of people. If we should have done, if the black people should do that, you will find and see that they that the people that everybody don't come down for them. Even the black people don't come down for them. They say, look, because we are more than one race in Guyana. But you're not hearing nothing about that. And even they have some stupid black people, Father, forgive me for saying that, who just taking the lead up from the Indian people. Look, for instance, because the man could give you a few cents more, you will just sit down and agree with this nonsense. And they have some intelligent people or educated people, so-called educated people, who are responding at that, just that, like, because they could, their friend who they believe, their so-called friend who they believe that could pay, that could give them an extra $1, they believe that there is their friend, and the next thing you know, they come and see all kind of negative things about the blacks. And there are many more things when you look at it. You have to look at it in that way. When you see these people attacking and they want to justify an act, you got to look at it very serious. I like how Dr. Hinds was making his point this morning. I like it because that is the way it should go. But I used to be annoyed with him when he and Education used to just sitting down and talking and even they are agreeing with some nonsense. Just Education mentioned about how he can never vote for the AP and UAFC, what for one little thing. Nothing nothing that could take, but what dedication was since that time was being paid off. He's a wicked and he's worse than a Judas. Anyhow,
Thank you,
I
caller.
have much more to say, but not at this time.
Thank you, caller.
Okay.
Your mic, sir. Dr. Hinds?
Yeah, no, the caller is on point. And I didn't hear the first caller's point, so I really can't comment.
Okay, the first caller was asking you, in short, she made a lot of comments, but the question she asked you is, these lands, ancestral lands that are now being distributed by the government to their friends and families and even foe, is there any provision in the law that would allow the descendants of African Guyanese, the owners of these ancestral lands, to reclaim them at some point in time?
Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. And the reason I like that question is that you don't have to settle everything today. You don't have to settle everything today. The key here is power. When you have power, you are able to right wrongs that you can't right when you don't have power. You are able to turn crooked roads into straight lines when you have power. And that is why, at this phase, we have to make the pitch for power. I hear all the individual things we want. We want a clean voters list. We want biometrics. We want this. We want that. And I support those things. But for me, we want those things not just to contest an election. We want those things to strengthen our hand in our pitch for power. You see, the argument that we have to make our people is about power. You see, one of the obstacles we have now is we are talking election. And I think that is an error to reduce our struggle to the next election. Human beings are not turned on by election 3 years before election. I am sure if you call an election today, Guyana is transformed. All those black people we abusing, they're going to be out on the road. But for now, the issue is not election. The issue is putting barricades against the onslaught by the PPP. And then, as you put those barricades, why are you stopping the PPP? What is the outcome you're looking for? You're looking for power. And you go to an election, you lose an election, and you are locked out of power. So we have to find a paradigm that includes election, but is not confined to election. And when we hit that sweet spot, the people will understand. And you will want to know where the enthusiasm comes from. You see, we are having an electoral argument, an electoral discourse. And the PPP is boxing us. Look at the advice they give Norton. Norton must transform. Norton must do this. Norton must do that. They are directing Norton to where they want him to go. And we on this side have to direct Norton to where we want him to go. That is the struggle. That is the struggle. And once our people feel, as the young people say, I feel in you. The people just not feeling us at this time. They don't disagree with our election argument. They don't disagree with it. But they know that their problems transcend the election. And so, that's a long answer to the short question. we have to deal with the question of ancestral lands. We have to deal with that. But we are best able to deal with it when we have power in our hands. Because it is power that is dispossessing our people of their ancestral lands. And if power is dispossessing you, then you have to use power to repossess. And that's where our argument, look, there is a reason. There is a reason that the PPP is deathly afraid of the narrative of the apartheid state. There's a reason that they're deathly afraid of these programs. Because they understand that our people are not machines, that they are things and methods that appeal to the black mind, that appeal to the black consciousness. And so when they jump in David Hinds' face and say, you always talk about race, they know that the more we talk about the racial oppression of our people, the more we are getting into the consciousness zone. They would like us to talk about biometrics and clean voters list all hours of the day. What they don't want us to tell is that as black people, these people are reducing you to second-class citizens. These people are pulling off one of the biggest cons that has ever been pulled off in Guyana. Once you move the conversation to race, they understand that you are now moving beyond the surface and you're going beneath the surface. You're getting into the consciousness zone. And that is why they come after us with such viciousness. And as I raise the point, as I decide whether David Hinds has any influence on black people. You say black people don't listen to him, then leave him alone. Dr. Williams used to say in Trinidad, of the Calypsonians, let the jackass bray. You know? But Dr. Williams understood the power of Calypso. And so, if David Hinds has no influence, then leave him alone, let the jackass bray. Why are you constantly after him? You're constantly after him because you understand where he is going. And you understand what could eventuate. The critics said David Hinds preparing black people for war. They know that I'm not preparing black people for war. What they do know is that I'm preparing black people to stand up for justice. They call it war. They call it war. But they understand what I'm doing. They understand what I'm doing. They understand what we are doing. And sometimes we tend to present ourselves as weaker than we are. We're not weak. We are not weak. The measure of strength is not when you get 100 people out there with a placard. That is not the measure of political strength. And so we have to be conscious about what we're up against, tactically, how we must move. You know, we do not reduce your conversation to election. Do not reduce. The next election is going to be rigged. The rigging has started. The rigging who work in a GCOM. It doesn't mean that we mustn't fight for voters list, clean voters list. It doesn't mean that we mustn't fight for biometrics. But the PPP is fighting to make sure they got people that if you get the clean voters list and you get the biometrics, get the people there to manipulate it into you. So our struggle is not one or the other. Our struggle has to be for everything. Because the PPP knows that at some point you will have to clean that list. And so they're ahead of the game. They're asking themselves, what happens when the list is clean? What happens if we have to give in to biometrics? What happens if the white people come here and agree with the opposition as they did in 1990 and say you have to have a clean voters list? We got to give in. And so they're beginning to think ahead. And I'm afraid that sometimes we get ourselves tangled in these small little silos that we don't give ourselves the opportunity to think ahead. The rigging has started. It has started with the selection of the personnel at GCOM. And you have to get under the frock at every twist and turn because they're trying to wear tight frocks, tight pants to hide what's going on. And you gotta rip it apart. And that is why they fear some of us. I'm not looking for votes. And they know that. They know that I'm not interested in votes. What I'm interested in is justice today. And so therefore, they want to hide the Aubrey Nortons of the world from the David Hinds of the world by putting this wedge in between us. I can't speak for Norton. I can only speak for myself. And I know exactly from my own politics, because my politics is not party politics. My politics is community politics, radical community politics that gets to the roots. I don't want to reform the electoral system. I'm not interested in that. I want to change the political system, transform it. And I know that we are not going to be able to transform that until we put our hands on power. And you have to begin to make that pitch for power from now on. No. You don't wait to win an election and then say you're going to exercise. Because once you win the election, all the other forces come in on you. EXXON come in on you, the Americans come in on you, the EU come in on you. Everybody will want you to govern in their interest. And so, winning an election is no guarantee of power. Look at what the PPP is doing. Ali is supposed to be this moderate face, but beneath that moderation is a political viciousness. That political viciousness you see at Pegasus when he was in there rocking that car. It hasn't gone away. It hasn't gone away. And Jacques Dion is as vicious as he has always been. And so what they're doing is that they're hiding Jacques Dion. But it's difficult to hide a man like Jacques Dion. It's difficult to hide him. So every now and again, Jacques Dion resurfaces. Look, Jacques Dion views up the Surinamese. And he should resign. He should resign. No, Jacques Dion intentionally abused the Surinamese because that is his role. And then Irfan will come like the good boy and try to smooth it over. There's a political con game that is going on. And we should not get caught in a conversation on their terms. Our conversation should be on our terms. We want a transformed electoral machinery, and above and beyond that, we want power. We want economic power. But we know to get economic power, we've got to have a share of the political.
Thank you, Dr. Hinds.
And we have to be brave enough to make that argument.
Caller, thank you for holding. You've been a patient man. The line is open.
Good morning, Kadaki. Good morning, Dr. Hinds.
Good
Off
morning,
the bat,
brother.
I must say, I hope many Guyanese, whether in Guyana or in the diaspora, are listening to this succinct analysis given by Dr. Hinds. Since yesterday, he continues today, and he's been doing it forever long. He makes reality. He breaks down reality in Guyana so eloquently that it makes people think beyond what appears as facades. He gives you it in the way any good thinker would analyze, but I can't find an exception to what he's doing. He is good at that. But my question here this morning has to do with the ancestral lands, the avenues for reclamation. The judges will tell them, well, these people have massive structure here. Are you going to settle for compensation? And we know what will be the end game. They will already have the ancestral lands, and it will boil down to square one. We pay you what the code says, and we still have them. So I want to know if we're going to wait until they start to build on them and we can't get the land anymore, or we fight them before any construction starts. The ball is in your court, Dr. Hinds. I know you're a master at analyzing stuff. You guys have a wonderful day, and thank you.
Thank you, caller. Before you answer, Dr. Hinds, two things. One, in your answer, I don't know if you have any reference to make to that Lands Commission that Granger hosted. That's one. And two, Sharon Ford is saying we don't need to wait until we get power. We ought to simply file a class action suit to address the issue of ancestral lands. And that, my word, will open up a can of worms, and a lot of people will come to the table. Go ahead, your answers.
Yes, I think Sharon is confusing. Note I said power, not office. Very careful with my language. We don't have to wait until we get office. We don't have to wait until we get office. I completely agree with her. Office and power is not the same thing. You can have office without power, right? Now look, the model is Zimbabwean model. Cosmo Mugabe, he understood the importance of ancestral land. And he challenged the whites on it. And from then he became a pariah of the West. They destroyed the Zimbabwean economy and all those kinds of things. Right?
Hello?
Call all the line, please.
The model Mugabe was saying is that power is important. And I'm not talking about office. Because you can be in office and you don't use the power of the office. But this thing about land, because land all over the world is the #1 thing that groups fight over. It still is the #1 thing that they fight over. If you're fighting over oil, the land becomes important. So we have to wage a racial struggle. This thing about ancestral land is not a political struggle in the classical sense of politics. We have to wage a racial struggle. And that is what I mean when I talk about power. I think black people have to stick their neck out today and say, as half of this population, we are demanding our space. And that's what I mean by power, Sharon. I don't mean office. I think we have ceded power in pursuit of office. So we don't speak and assert our black power. Because we feel if we do that, the party will lose. The party can't get crossover vote. So we have stifled black power. While the Indians have affirmed Indian power in and out of office. They use their location in the political economy to wage war against government and opposition, wherever they are. And black people have to use our strategic location and assert our power. The issue of ancestral land is not an electoral issue. It's not a party issue. It's a racial issue. And that's where we have to go. We have to assert, and we do have. Black people do have racial power. We have racial, we don't use it. We don't use it because, like I said, we get caught up a lot with the party politics. And we don't use our racial power. And that's why they say David Hinds preached racial sermons. No, they say sermons. And racial, because that's what they're about.
Caller, thank you for holding your life. Final call for the day.
Yeah, could I go ahead?
Yes.
Yeah. Good morning, Dr. Hinds. Good morning, Cousin Lee. It's for us to get what we want, we have to unify ourselves as black people and think along the narrative line. Now, look at Victoria. Instead of, I asked before that Victoria get on Alwell Road going straight down to the back dam and to get people to access the land to utilize it. It was a whole hip and cry. Some of them, the African race is so divided over, and this comes because of economic power. They don't have the guards to one another. Now Victoria needs an Alwell Road going straight down to the back, this ancestral land. But then, when you talk to somebody used to Victoria, most of them say, they make a time for them. They want a car, they want a motorbike. You understand? They want business. When you own the land, you own the land, you own thing. But and then at the village office in the back place, a bundle of skullduggery going on. I think when the time comes to do the back of Victoria and ancestral land, you will want to know who are the real owners. We got to start getting our stuff together. And let me check at some of the young black men making money now. You check who they tie themselves up. The same thing with the black stars that thing in America. You check who they tie up themselves with. The people put themselves in a way that they can get the money from the black people. You understand? And the black people don't, the Afro-Guyanese don't understand what is these people's strategy. Now let's go to Muka. The MP professors out there fighting, and the most amazing thing, it was a few women and about 2 men with blue vests fighting against people who want to break down that man's house and everything. What happened to the rest of the village? If they came out with forces, they might have got better results. None of them, all of them stay down. You can't depend on Ms. Blue Vest alone to do it. You can't depend on the MP alone to do it. The people of themselves, we have to come out. How many of them come out? How many of them never sacrifice to come out? Because you, Mr. Kadili, went into Victoria and those guys who have shown you around the different marginalization of going on, those things. You know a lot of them in Victoria Town and was saying that guy make that out. The people we don't committed to develop Victoria. That is the mindset of the people. And if we don't get up to that mindset to stand up fight for what we want, and I also mention about BUXTON and that 56,000 to the 25 contractors, that's this penny white, and I'm glad Mr. Hinds bring it up. I spoke with already over Sherwood Duncan show. Why they accepted that, and the same nonsense going on in the side like us. They promised them to do the ground, yeah, because we gladiators, we don't want development. the promise to do the ground. The grass stand there, the thing dig, you see no material come. And Mr. Hickens say everything, and then they asking them if they can do it by self-help. They going, when they went to Pigeon Island, they get 80 million, they didn't tell them they can do self-help, they give them 80 million to do infrastructure. They can't even start up, the ground, the thing, they got 2%, there's a family living on the ground, but there's no attempt for them to move. So these are things that after Guyana got to get together, they get to unite our rest. We're standing nowhere, no matter how much you preach, no matter the other commentators that thing preach and show that should bring reality to them. If they don't change their mindset, we will end down the fairway. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your call. Dr. Hinds, I have a few voice notes to play, and then I'll ask you to do your closing. It's 9:01.
Good morning to you, gentlemen. Mr. Kadaki, you hit the hammer on the nail. Because the same thing I'm looking at. When are we going to get justice for things that keep repeating itself and keep happening to our citizens? Now I am saying, in no way we could give the opposition that we have credit for the work that they are doing. Those people aren't working for us. They are not working for us. We put them there. We voted for them. And anybody that is there by the votes of the people, they're supposed to have the people's back. They don't have our backs. If you sit in your quiet moment and you just look and see what goes on, you will tell yourself, it's time that we just think for ourselves and whatever it is. Because even when the opposition was in government, you understand, we had a problem with them to solve things for people. They quickly solve matters of their own interests, and matters that doesn't interest them, as far as I'm concerned, they all sit idly by, and they keep coming with one message to us. Oh, we will do this, we will do that, we will do this, and they are not doing anything as far as I'm concerned. You understand? They have 217,000, which I think it is more, but whatever they were given, the 217,000, they do not appear and they do not make it look as if they're concerned about the 217,000 people. It looks as if they're concerned about how they feel about themselves and whatever it is. If you look around and you see, people are very much fed up. And to know that you put some people there to look after your interests, and what are they doing? Can we just sit and say that yes, the opposition is fighting? The opposition is no fighter. This is not a fighting opposition. Of all oppositions, this is not a fighting opposition. And the people know it. That is why the PPP is going ahead and do everything. It is nothing that I think they have left to do to stymie black or African Guyanese, as we call ourselves. They ain't left to do nothing. And whatever crumbs they left to do to keep us where we are is going to happen, because we have a very lazy opposition. A set of lazy people just want to call themselves parliamentarian, and they're on the line talking all the time. Right now, I'm fed up listening to them. And I know there are many more. That is why people aren't killing themselves. People trying to survive the best way they can, forgetting them at this point. That is how the people see them at this point. If you talk to your fellow Guyanese, you're going to know. People just fed up of them, because people know they can do better and they could do more. And they could be more stern with this government, but they are not doing that. And if I'm to be quoted right, the government and them are friends. Is we outside here suffering? Thank you.
Voice note.
Good morning, Gadaki. Good morning, Dr. Hinds. Once again, I tune in to another morning of Dr. Hinds and the issues, you know. Again, he's raising these points that it's making a lot of sense. And again, you know, I always say the average person didn't know some of these things, you know, and it's teaching over the past couple of years that helped me, and I'm sure a whole lot of other people, so much to understand the different types of protests and, you know, what triggers the human beings, what trigger human beings. And I think it's because he studied that, he understands, you know, human psychology and these kind of things. So, you know, again, I'm very, very thankful for you know, teachings like this. The PvP is cleared of people like Dr. Hinds. I think if Guyana had a couple of more people like Dr. Hinds, Kidaki, people like you, Kidaki Amsterdam, they would understand, the country would have been a much more balanced place, because, you know, you all bring out, as you said, this radical side, and that side always get the PvP on the edge. Just imagine, to me, the PPDP don't even take on the opposition, or, you know, controlling more than almost half of the country, as they take on people like you guys from the WP, because to me, like, you understand, you touch those nerves that really get them, you know, you all touch those nerves really get them upset, and, you know, continue doing it. And you always have them, as Dr. Ann say, responding, and that's very, very good, because it shows that, as he always say, that you're winning. You understand me? They might raise their hand and say yes or sorry, you all are winning, but you're winning, and meaning that we're winning. We as black are winning because we're understanding ourselves more culturally, politically, and every other way of life. Thanks to you guys.
Thank you for that voice note. We have a couple more to play.
Good morning, Mr. Amsterdam and Dr. Hinds. I think the opposition need to do more. They need to get out there. Some of them, some working and some aren't. They need to get out, move around, visit communities. I like my community. I don't see no one coming around. You get a lot of youths here who want someone to sit, to show them out, let them understand. Some people I talk, some children I talk to don't even know what's really going on. They bent on one thing. So when you at home now as parents telling your children, and then you have like the opposition coming into the community, find some home, some place, some corner to talk to these young people. These people are scared because there's no law. There's no laws for especially the black people, right? So people just being, what I must say, the spirit is broken, right? And now is the time that you got to beat the iron while this is hot. Get out there and talk to people. That is my concern. Do more. Next thing that people should look at, or the citizens then should look at, the reason for this low salary scale is that they want to keep people below a certain mark, that you will always be dependent and not independent. Because if they give you a reasonable sum of salary, wages, you are able to excel, you are able to do things, you know, to help yourself. But with that, you cannot do anything. It barely feed you if you don't have family outside to help you. How could you? Now, concerning the lands, my thing about the lands, yes, the lands is there. But some of our older folks or parents, sometimes they leave it there, they don't even tell you about it. So now they die and gone, you don't have anything in your hand. Majority, I won't say majority, but some people that I know of, you can't get to do anything because the land is there. You can't put your hands on it. they didn't get a transport, or they didn't renew the change the transport and put your name into it. Leave it with other people instead of giving your relatives or pass it down to your children. That is another problem we got to look at, and these things need to change. You need to change. Do what you have to do early. Call one of them. You must have somebody that you could trust, especially within the family, to say, well, look, I'm going to put this, I'm getting whole, I'm going to put this land into your name, so that when I die, you will not have no problem in getting through. So some of these lands there, you can't really get your hands on it because you don't know a thing about it. You can't, even if you go into the registrar, how you going to go? You don't know where to turn or what to do. Like, I'm saying this because I'm in a problem similar to that. Because my grandmother died and leave this land. I go into this place of the bank there. Of the bank. Oh God, I can't remember it. But I go there and I check and I saw my grandmother's name. But now I don't know when she born. I don't know when she died. And it's a problem to get it. But it is there. I go and see it. And it is there. But I can't get it.
Look, guys, here, those are a lot of voice notes. I still have about 3 or 4. You want to respond before I play them, or you want to?
No. Go ahead and play them. I am learning quite a bit here.
Next thing.
Hi, good morning, Dr. Hinds. Good morning, Mr. Gadaki. I have a little bit of contribution on your program. I don't know if I'll be offline of the conversation that is going on, but I have something to say. The PPP is saying that the APNU and the AFC have done nothing. It's a song they're singing. Now, you heard Jadio speak it many times on his handout and his giving his people. APNU and AFC coalition have done nothing for you people. Oh my God. If people have a brains and they sit down and they know the major things that the APNU AFC coalition have done for Guyana, the PPP, Jadio would never stand up there to tell people that and to give them handout. One, we are on a blacklist throughout the world. Drugs, everything bad that the international world had on Guyana. It's the APNU AFC clean the list. And for them to come and say that, and people don't see that. Some stupid Guyanese, okay, sorry to say stupid, some Guyanese, black Guyanese are going with the same. Imagine we have ambassador from Europe, France is going to Guyana now. Who cleared the list? You think if Guyana was on a blacklist, these people would have come? Oh, my people, seriously, Guyanese have a brain. The APNU and the AFC coalition for the 3 years, I could call it 3 years, they were there. They have done so much that even what the PPP is doing right now, they cannot compensate because they ain't doing nothing. The PP is not doing nothing. Thank you. I can't say more. I'm very much angry. Thank you.
Good morning, Kanaki and Dr. Hinds. I'm on my way to court. But with this thing they're talking about, that is exactly what the man say. They try to put division into everything. And because we have started to talk about an apartheid system, things like that, hugging up at the football ground there, they will try to put that up to say, oh, we are not apartheid because look, the two different, the African and the Coolie, hugging up on the football match. That has always happened. Look the other day when Chris Gale went with President Granger to London. Look the sparks and all kind of thing that Sarwan put into that little rally. Lots of people will go to rally. And if I was a cricketer or a sporting person, sporting icon, and I had gone to a country who they offering me a free trip to a part of the country that I find intriguing, because just approaching the Linden Sioux Dyke Highway from Georgetown, and it gives you a rush of adrenaline as you notice those hills. And when you start to climb those hills, it is because of Lyndon Forbes Thompson Burnham with his vision of uplifting and improving a country that was a dense jungle. The only way to get to Mackenzie in those days was via the RH car or the Son Chapman that they bombed. So everybody, at least I find it breathtaking and intriguing, climbing the highway. And look what Sarwan did, if I'm not mistaken, because I don't really follow cricket. It affected Chris Gayle in his work, because he's a cricketer, that is his occupation. I think it affected Chris Gayle with what Sarwan did, because Chris Gayle opted to go with Granger, because Moonshine could say that he got Chris Gayle in the bad books. I don't know why you gotta jump on somebody who follow an African leader, and I'm African, to put me in your bad books, a coolie man. What was Barrett talking about? So as we see it, I don't see why Naeem Chan must get down on the program and try to disgrace Dr. Hinds. They are all looking to disgrace this fellowship, this band, all African persons with integrity. I want them to know we taught them how to live. We cleaned them up. They came here through the white people from a color-ridden state, because right where they shitting, they cooking with the water, washing the waves, drinking it in the Ganges, and they come here, they got a place full of cholera, and it's we make them know not to do those things. We teach them about pet latrine, and then we upgrade them to toilet. So they got a lot to be thankful for with the Africans all over the world. We taught them life. We were where civilization began, because we were the first people. We were the people who peopled the earth. Let them go down and check it out. Archaeologists found skeletons in Africa that they cannot place a date on, because civilization was started there. All right, bye-bye. See you later. Wish me all the best.
Final voice. No, thank you and all the best, Rondo.
Good morning, Dr. Hinds. Good morning, Brother Kadaki. Good morning, viewers. When it comes to critics, don't mention nothing but critics. Ask them sellers on Regent Street about critics. Morning. Critics six them big, stink, dirty man, always abusing them black women. He's a racial bitch. Right now, the people at Loziknan waiting on justice, where his son hit down a resident and killed him. I never hear nothing about it. Big stink skin critics. I know critics for years. I had dealings to do with him.
That was the final voice note for the day. Dr. Hinds.
What a show. I thoroughly I thoroughly I don't want to say enjoy, because enjoy is not the right word. But I really love this morning's show. Not that I don't love other shows, but I like the energy this morning. I like the intensity this morning, and I think this is what moves the needle for our struggle. Thanks for the affirmation from our people, because when they open their mouth, they always say, "Oh, David Hinds ain't got nobody supporting me," and so on. Thanks so much for the affirmation. We hear you. We understand the frustration. We understand the alienation from the organized opposition, the formal opposition, sorry. But as we keep saying, we have to broaden the opposition. And that is, you have to empower and affirm the rest of us, as you did here this morning. You have to affirm us. You have to let them know that you support us. And I think this morning was quite clear, you know. It's not about vote. When it comes to vote, we have to maximize the vote. And we have to put the vote where it is most effective. But I'm talking here about support. I'm talking about support. And I feel the support and the affirmation this morning. And it's good news for us in the WPA, for us in the radical side of things, because it says that there is a part of our community that is hearing us, and it feels that we have a role to play. And if we can join our roles together in a systematic way, then we are going to be more effective. You know, we in the WPA, we have held out to the rest of the opposition that we we want to be part of a broad opposition movement. That is why we joined the the PNC and the AFC in those public meetings in Golden Grove and Georgetown, because we want to be part of that movement. But you the people, have to signal to the big party that you affirm us, you support our approach, you support the initiatives that we're taking. You know, they like to say that, you know, you hear it from PNC leaders, the WPA is an intellectual party. We're glad. We're glad that we can bring some intellectual energy to the struggle. We are more than intellectuals. We are more than intellectuals. We are activists. We are activists. And so therefore you have to signal to them that people like Hinds and Amsterdam and the WPA are more than just a bunch of people with a small party. You have to signal to them that what we are doing is important to acquiring power. And note I say power, not office. Power. We have power. We have potential power. You don't be the majority in the police and be powerless. You don't be the majority in the army and be powerless. You don't be the majority of teachers and be powerless. You don't be the majority of nurses and be powerless. You don't be the majority of government workers and be powerless. We have to turn those spaces, important spaces, without teachers and nurses and police and government workers and army. The country doesn't work. That people, without those categories of workers, I call there, the country closes down. For the country to work, they need us. We have potential power. And we have to turn potential power into real power. And like I said, you don't do that by waiting for an election. You do it now. Now, the government has to work today. The children have to be taught today. The people who are sick have to be cared for today. We have potential power as black people. We have black power in this country. And we have to turn that potential power into real power. We have work to do. We have work to do. But we are not weak. We are not powerless. We are not weak. We are not powerless. We are not weak. We are not powerless. That's the message.
Thank you, Dr. Hinds. Thank you, viewers, for tuning in. Let me tell you about 2 or 3 things before I leave. Number 1, the program was under attack this morning. I don't know how many of you noticed it. We were kicking 7 going to 800, and then you had a blip, and then some of you started seeing on the screen waiting for a signal. That was a demonstration that we are constantly being watched, and we are constantly being monitored, and a constant attacks to keep us from talking with you. You know why that attack happened this morning? Because I let the guards down. It was deliberate. I deliberately did not use what I use every morning. Remember, for months we were getting these constant attacks, and then they stopped because I put in place a guard to stop those attacks. There's a cost to it. I always mention there's a cost to it. Good? I have to pay monthly for it. But I am showing you, when you let the guards down, what happens? Right? And that is why we have to remain vigilant. That is why we have to remain vigilant, and we have to keep doing what we do. That's number one. Number two, I'm not going to be on the protest line today. I don't intend to. But I'm encouraging those of you who have the energy and the time and so on, go on the protest line in front of GCOM. You know what the fight is. Do it. Right? Meantime, let me alert you. I started alerting you since yesterday. As of the beginning of the new month, the approach to GCOM will change. The approach to those protests will change. So, stay tuned for that. You're always free to hit me up on WhatsApp. We can talk about the way forward and things like that. Remember that this program needs your support. And this program, when I say this program, is not BUXTONIAN Morning Time or Kams Tv. It is a program of activism. All that I do, all that we do in the community, it will continue to need your support. And including in that activism is the fact that I do the feeding program for children on Fridays at a particular school in the community. Let us not lose sight of that. Good? I learned recently, and I'm not knocking anybody here, but I learned recently that a student of Queen's College actually joined the protest line last week. A child coming from school, a child who attends Queen's College, saw the protest, and I would say recognized the significance of it, and joined the protest line. But that child was discouraged and turned away by one of our protesters. With all good intention. The explanation I understand is I didn't want that child to be victimized at school. Right? I am just recently learning of this. And all kinds of still is. So I would ask him, how would you have approached that? A child joining the protest line. How would you have approached that?
Encourage the child.
Very well.
Let that child know that he or she is doing nothing new. In the night, when I was active, began my activism in the 70s and the 80s, students from St. Rose's High School and Queen's College and St. Stanislaus and Bishops came out on the streets when their headmistress, Sister Esther Campaign, and Sister Bonita Harris and Brenda Doe Harris. These are all WPA, not Sister Campaign, but Brenda Doe Harris and Bonita. They transferred them from the Georgetown schools into the bush in order to get them away from the schools. And the school children came out. They came out on the streets. After Walter Rodney was assassinated, they came out. And you know who? Rusty Jackson's daughter. I don't know if it's Vicky, which one of them, but one of them was in high school at the time, and she joined the protest. Her father was in the government as a foreign minister, and she was there. A lot of the middle-class children, their parents had contact with the PMT. I think Nigel Hughes was at St. Stanislaus at the time, and he was part of those protests. So school children, you know, I would have told that school child, you are in the best tradition. The best tradition. You know, those of us who know the American Civil Rights Movement, the Black African American Civil Rights Movement, would know that in Alabama, that they called out children 8, 9 years old. When Bull Connor used the water walls on children, it was a turning point in the civil rights struggle. They were putting 8 and 9 and 10 11-year-old children in paddy wagons and shipping them off to jail. And that was a turning point in the civil rights movement. So I would have said to that child, you are acting in the best tradition of student activism.
Thank you very much. My exact thoughts. I would have liked to have had the opportunity to talk with that child and encourage that child. I'm fearful that what we might have done by sending that child away is corrupt the old mindset and replace that bravery with fear. By simply saying, no, we don't want you, go, we don't want thing. That child will now be thinking about what are the possible methods of victimization or oppression that he or she would have faced had he or she remained on the arm line. But nevertheless, I say that to say, protests must be encouraged from all forms, all ages, all race, color, and creed. Protests must be encouraged. It's a healthy thing for society. Continue to support the program financially and otherwise. I am thinking that I want, and I'm asking for, somebody talked about organizing or visiting the communities, the parliamentarians and so on, visiting the communities. I've said to you already, I'm not going to wait for parliamentarians, and you must not wait for parliamentarians. I'm ready and willing to continue to visit with you in the communities. Just organize your communities, reach out, and I'll come and we'll sit and talk. And while I'm telling you that, I'm asking you also. I'm not waiting for you to ask me. I'm asking you to organize so that I can come to your communities, because that is something I intend to do from next month. I really intend to be on the road very frequently in communities, talking with people, the young, old, the in between, the indifferent, everybody who would like to have a conversation. I want to come into your communities and talk, and let us chart the way forward. Dr. Hinds said this is not about...
And I just want to add to what Kidaki said. Kidaki is not a one-man army. Kidaki belongs to a political party, and the political party has laid out its strategy. And part of our strategy is coming into the communities. Kidaki is one of our leading members, and as he comes into the communities, he's coming into the communities as part of the Working People's Alliance. I just wanted to stress that.
Thank you. I was saying something, I get big quick, man. I miss the train of thoughts quickly. That is why when I'm talking, I'm always rattling. I don't want to, I don't want to lose the train of thought. Yes, but that's the short of it. I want us to start a campaign of postering. Postering. People are not coming out to protest and so on to get the messages. And we don't believe, or some people believe, that we're not reaching enough people with the messages by these programs and so on. I want us to start a campaign of postering. There's some people who promised me posters, because I had asked for some posters, flyers as we call them, for the picket in front of GCOM. Hold your hand on that. I'm likely to do some changes to the images which you have, and so we can do some poster messaging in communities. I would love to have some volunteers to do the postering of communities when these posters are available. Please and thanks. Hit me up on 6225933. That's the WhatsApp number. That's the contact number. Have a great day. Stay safe. Join Dr. Hinds tonight for Politics 101. I'm not sure he's still there. Are you still there, sir? Who is your guest tonight? All right, he has left. Good. But join Dr. Hinds tonight for Politics 101, and we will talk. Have a good day. Be fruitful, be vigilant, and let's keep the fire burning. Goodbye.